In this video, we will show you how to build a form from scratch, how to insert that form onto a page within your website, how to view submissions, as well as how to set up some other properties including email notifications. BizForms can be used for a form that you use at the club, such as a membership inquiry or a contact us. BizForms allows the user to submit the form directly on your website, and the data will be available to you in the back end of the website. The Biz form you see here is the form that we will be creating today. In order to create a Biz form, we must first log into the website. So just locate your member login button and enter in your administrator credentials. Now that we're logged in, you're going to click on your name and switch to Club Central. Then once in your dashboard, locate that BizForms application square. Now if you don't see the BizForms application square here, don't worry. On the top left hand side of the screen, you're going to click on this little globe icon to open your application list. Then under Content Management, you will find BizForms. Okay? If not, you can always search for it in your search bar as well. So let's go ahead and go into BizForms. Most important thing you want to note first time you do create a Biz form is this attention notice. Right? So it's just letting us know that collecting sensitive information by way of BizForms is strictly prohibited. If found, the forms and corresponding data will be deleted immediately without warning. Sensitive information includes, but is not limited to, credit card information, social security numbers, social insurance numbers, and driver's license numbers. To create your form, you're going to look for that New Form button. And go ahead and enter the name of your form. So remember, for today, we're making our membership inquiry. Once you've got your name in there, go ahead and click Save. The first place you are now going to be taken to is the Form Builder. On the left-hand side, you will see the components, and these are what are used to actually build the form. Basically, the main elements that construct your form. In the middle section, this is where we actually drag those components to create the form. Then on the right hand side, you'll see shortly, this is where we'll see the properties of each component, which will include additional fields that we can modify and configure the settings of for each one of those components, including the name of the component, any requirements, description, choices, etc. Just note that changes are saved automatically as you go along, and you'll see there is no save button on this screen. To view the description of a component, simply hover your mouse over and it will provide that description for you. As mentioned earlier, in order to put a component into your form, you're just going to click and drag. So for the text box, this provides a single line field for entering text. And remember, on the right hand side, I said we would see those properties. The first one you see is the label. So this is the actual label that will show here for what the field component should be saying. So for example, this one we're going to put name. Then you have the required option. If you check this box, it means that whoever is answering this form does have to complete this field in order to submit their form. Next is your default value. Anything you enter here will show up inside the field. So for example, maybe we want to put an example. Then you have your explanation text. This text will appear underneath that field, and it gives that user a few more details about that component. So let's put first and last name. And lastly, you have your tooltip. This is text that will show when you hover over that component. So let's put, please enter your full name. Then when we hover over that component, that will provide us with that tooltip. Note that as you go along and add your components, each field may be different depending on what type of properties it has and what function it plays within the form. Next, let's add in a multiple choice question. The multiple choice component allows you to specify multiple selectable values in the form of checkboxes. So let's click and drag, and just make sure you're dragging to where you have that dotted line box. So remember, the properties you do see for a component depend on what values you can enter for them. If you mark this question as required and you decide you no longer want it and you do want to remove it from your form, make sure you come back and uncheck that required box, otherwise you will get an error within the form. So when a user does try to submit that form, it will almost be as if that question is there, but it's invisible and will not allow your users to submit that form. If you do want to delete a question, again, we've unchecked that required, and you're just going to click on that little trash can. Okay. Here's your notice about making sure you unmark that question as required, and let's click OK. Just note any question you delete from your form must also be deleted within the field section. Now let's go ahead and build the rest of our form. For my next option, I'm going to use the US phone number. This provides fields for entering a phone number in US format. Note that you can also use the text box as well if you don't have the US format style. So I'm going to click on my component, and we're just going to change this to read phone number. This one I would also like to mark as required. Next, let's use email. So this provides a field for entering one or multiple emails. I'm happy with that label, so we're going to go ahead and leave that as is, but let's also mark that as required. Next, I'm going to utilize the radio buttons. This allows specifying multiple values in the form of selectable buttons. For this one, I'm going to put preferred method of contact. For those options, like you saw with the multiple choice question, okay, we can simply type in our answer. So my first one, I'm going to put phone. And my second one, let's put email. You do have the ability to add more options, or if you don't need an option that already exists, just click that trash can. Next, I'm going to do a drop-down list. This enables entering a list of values for the user to choose from in a drop-down list view. For this label, we're going to go ahead and put membership type. And let's fill in those options. And we're going to add one more additional option in there. Now, this one I don't need as required, but I'm actually going to set that preferred method of contact as required. And one more additional question I want to put in there is the text area. This is the most common option because it does provide a field of adjustable size for entering text, as you see here. For my label, I'm going to call this one Comments and Questions. If you like, you can set up a validation. This is to ensure that the data that is entered into a field is valid. And this can be used for components such as email addresses. So let's select our email, and you're going to click on Validation. And just add in that validation role. For the role, we're going to select Email, and then you can go ahead and put in your error message. This rule will basically make sure that any email entered into this field is in the correct standard email format. So for our error message, we can put, please enter a valid email address. Once you've set that rule, just click Apply. So we now have that validation for our email component. Note that if a component is marked as required, the validation will automatically say please enter a value, if left blank upon submission. Now that we've built our form, we're going to go ahead and click on this little 3 ellipses on the left hand side. So remember, I said we're in our form builder right now. Okay. Next, we're going to go into General. This is where you can come in and adjust the display name of the form if you need to. And we're going to set up what we want to happen after the form has been submitted. Now we don't want to leave this on continue editing because what that does is when the user submits their form, it's going to look as if their information is still there and they might be confused if their form was submitted or not submitted. Your best options are either to use this redirect to URL, which all you have to do is get that URL for the page. Maybe it's another page within your website or a thank you page. As soon as that user submits the form, they will be redirected to that page. The option we're going to use today is the display text. And this text will appear as soon as that user clicks the submit button. So let's put, thank you for submitting a membership inquiry. Most importantly, any changes you make you click that save button. Now that we've created our form and set up those general settings, we can go ahead and put that form within a page on our website. In order to do that, we're going to click the house icon to navigate back to our dashboard. Then we're going to go into our Pages application square. Then simply find the page where you want to include that form. For us, we're going to go to our membership page, and under membership, we're going to put it on our membership inquiry page. If you like, you can definitely include some text or images, hyperlinks, whatever you want within the page itself. So let's put the title. Want to give that a heading 1 and some subtext. Now, in order to insert that form, you're going to place the cursor where you want the form to appear. And on the content editor, you're going to look for the little BizForm icon where it says Insert Form. Go ahead and click Select and find that form that you want to insert on this page. That's all you have to do here, and we can save and close. When you have inserted your form, you will see a little gear icon, and that's letting you know you have a BizForm on the page. Let's make sure we save those changes. Now, in order to actually view that form, you just need to switch to preview mode. And there's that form we just created. Once you're satisfied with that page, make sure you do publish. Now that we've published our form, let's go ahead and see what that looks like on our live site and also submit an example. So let's go to our live site. and I know this page is connected by clicking on my membership inquiry. And here's the form we created. Let's go ahead and enter in a submission. We'll start with our name, then phone number, email address, preferred method of contact, so this was a radio button that allows us to choose one option. And then for membership type, we did this as a drop-down, so I can go ahead and select my membership type. And comments and questions within the text area that allows you to expand that. However, because we didn't mark this as required, and maybe I just don't have any comments or questions to leave in here, I can leave this one blank. Once I've entered all those fields, we'll click Submit. And there's our thank you for submitting a membership inquiry that we filled out in the General tab. Here is an example of an autoresponder. This email will be sent to the user after they have submitted their form. It can be personalized, such as including the user's name like you see here. Here is an example of an email notification. This will be sent to the club after a form has been submitted and can also be personalized, as you can see in the subject line. Both of these do need to be enabled within the back end of the website, and we're going to look at how to do that now. Remember, in order to access your BizForms, you're going to switch to Club Central and click on that BizForms application square. If you want to edit an existing form, just click on that pencil icon beside the form name. First thing we're going to look at is the recorded data. So, when we did submit our entry, our data is now being stored within this section for us. So we can go ahead and see all the fields that were answered. If you like, you can click on Actions and export this to Excel. Now, before we look at setting up that autoresponder and email notification, we're going to start by going into Fields. If you recall, any component that we do delete within the form builder must be deleted here first. Now, if you did mark a question as required, this is also your opportunity to come in here, select that question, and unmark it as required before you delete it. And that can be done just by clicking that required button. You'll see that there are some fields that are grayed out, and that means that they no longer exist in our form, such as the multiple choice control. However, please note that we never want to delete these three fields that you see at the top here. That one will be the name of your form plus the ID, when the form was inserted, and when the form was updated. These should always remain within your form. Now, if you do have a component that you need to delete, all you have to do is click on that component. So this is the multiple choice question that we did delete. And you're just going to click on that trash can. Another neat thing we can do is actually change the field name for that component. For this one, I want to choose the first option. And if you can't remember what the field name is for that component, you can find it under the field caption. Changing the field name here does help when you are trying to personalize your email notifications and your autoresponders. Note that you cannot put space in the field name. You will get an error message. So just do simply what you see here by putting it all as one word. For this one, I'm just going to put name. And make sure you save those changes. And that's about all you really need to know within the field area. Now we're going to click on the three ellipses, and let's go ahead and look at that email notification. Your email notification allows emails to be sent to someone at the club whenever a BizForm has been submitted on the website. To enable this function, simply click off Send Form Data to Email. The from email is the from field in the email notification. So, for example, we'll put in our email address. Then your to field is whoever at the club will be receiving these notifications. And I'm going to put myself in here. Then you can go ahead and populate that subject line. Now you can personalize the subject line with field information that has been captured within the form. For example, the name of a person who submitted the form, like you saw in our example of the email notification. In order to do that, we're going to start by putting our subject. And remember in the field section how we changed that field name from Textbox control to name. Okay. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and put in that new field name. You can do that by putting in a parentheses, %, the field name, followed by the %, and a parentheses. The field name, when used within 2 % and 2 parentheses, as seen here, will auto-populate that field used within that form submission. So make sure to use a field that has been marked as required so that all notifications do include data as opposed to an empty field. And if you ever forget, that can always be found within the field section on the left. And let's go ahead and save those changes. Next, we're going to look at the Autoresponder. This will send an email automatically to the user upon submission of their form within the website. This will only work if the form included a field to obtain the user's email address. That's why we do recommend that all BizForms do have an email address field and suggest that this field be marked as required. First thing you want to do for that confirmation email source is to choose either email or whatever field you use to capture the user's email address. The from email is whoever this email notification will be coming from. So let's put in that same email address. And then you can add your subject as well. This subject can also be personalized, like you saw within the email notification. Now we can actually customize that autoresponder email, and this is going to be the actual email body itself. You do have the use of the content editor, so if you are familiar with either working on your web pages or using our email marketing program, you'll see the content editor is very similar to that. Now we can actually personalize the body of the message. So I'm going to start by saying, "Hi," and I want to put that member's name in there. So on the right hand side, we can see the available fields that we have within the form. Again, like within the email notification, remember how we went into fields and changed the field name from Textbox control to name? That way, once we enter the value into the email, it'll be a little bit more clear as to what that value actually is. Now, in order to insert that into our email, we're going to click Insert Value, and that's going to enter that value into your email. So now that whatever the user entered as their name will automatically populate within their email. So let's throw in a comma and add in our text. Once you've entered all the information into the body of your email, again, just make sure you click that Save button. The last thing we're going to take a look at is layout. The layout section allows for the ability to customize the form layout and make changes to the field positioning and appearance. By default, the fields will be arranged as they appear within the form builder. So you don't actually have to come in here and adjust the layout. This is just if you want to do some special customization to it. Now there are two ways of customizing the layout, and both start by enabling the Use Custom Form layout. As you're doing your custom layout, your content editor can be used for both options. Also note that the fields must already exist within your form in order for the custom layout section to be used properly. So option number 1. What we can do is click Generate Default Layout, and that's going to add all your components at once into the content area. This will pull the field label, the field input, and the field validation. This can now be customized if you choose to. If you leave it at just generate default layout, it will just left align the form for you. For option number 2, we're going to use custom form layout, and this time we can actually insert every field one by one. And you'll find that under Insert Field. What you want to do is start by placing your cursor, and you're going to choose your layout element and your forefield. First, we'd probably want to start with that label because that's the actual name of the field. So we'll insert that, put a few spaces. Now we want to insert that input, and that's the answer that the user submitted. Insert that, more spaces. And lastly, we'll put in that validation. Just in case this question was marked as required and the user did not answer that question, it will pull up an error message. So for both option 1 and option 2, you can choose to put photos in here, you can play around with the text. If you want to get custom with that, you definitely can. If not, you can simply use that Use Automatically Generated Form layout, and you can always put your text and images directly on the web page. Again, let's just save those changes.